Got you niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me. And Justin Brown for your movie needs. Media popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault.
Yep.
That's good? Okay.
Yep. Sounds good, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Keith and Kenny, this is my co-host, Justin.
What's up, guys?
You guys ever got to meet him?
We met, right? Have we met?
I don't think so.
Maybe at an Outliers show like back in the day,
Yeah,
but that's
possibly.
about it. Yeah. But like incredibly excited to have you guys on. First off, congratulations to the Black Messiah. Just watched it this past weekend. Phenomenal job. Like I'm just curious, before we talk about Malcolm X and everything, how'd you all get involved in that project? And like, you know, what did that story mean to you guys?
Man, you know, obviously the Hampton story is one of those stories like when you find out about it, it just sort of stays with you. Right. It's one of those things that you constantly think about it and constantly think about it. But we first learned about it in college. Mm-hmm. We're taking this history of African American studies course, and you know, we read it had a little bit about Hampton in one of the books that we were reading, and that was the first introduction. Right.
Yeah, so you know, it was always in the back of our minds like how tragic the story was, and also how like obscure Hampton was. Like no one really like talked about him, and it always like kind of made me feel kind of weird about it. I'm like, how do we not know about this story of the American government, you know, using all its resources to, you know, essentially, not even essentially, but to execute a citizen exercising their constitutional rights. So they're always just like, it never really boded very well for me. So when I went to law school and I started to learn a little bit more about the machinations of law and how, you know, it is literally used as a way to sort of oppress people, it dawned on me that I really wanted to tell his story in a way that was complex and compelling. So once we dropped out of law school and got into comedy, it was always in the back of my mind, I want to write this script, or I want to produce this story. I want to make sure I see it through as a film.
Yep. And so as we learn more about, you know, the Hollywood process and, you know, the process of making movies, we realized that, you know, in order to get this movie made, we would have to take it upon ourselves to you know, get it done. So around 2013, we started putting together an outline for a story and how we could potentially sell a film that's about Fred Hampton. And on our research, we stumbled upon an interview by William O'Neill. He did this documentary, Eyes on the Prize, which came out in like 1990.
Right.
And we read the transcript and we were like, holy shit, like this is the structure of a thriller.
Right.
It can be a crime thriller, but, you know, we also have the Hampton story baked into it.
Right.
And because we thought that would be the best way to potentially sell it.
Right.
And so we put together an outline utilizing the interview as sort of like our guide to structure a movie. Mm-hmm. And we pitched it around town. We didn't get any offers. Mm-hmm. And that was around 2014. We didn't get any offers. And then so we were like, all right, we have to go back to the drawing board. Right. And we were fortunate enough to do, we did this pilot with Shaka King.
Right. We did a pilot with Shaka King for FX. And, you know, it didn't get picked up, but we really like kind of hit it off. And we realized that he was a really like just genius director, an auteur, if you ask me. And he studied at NYU under Spike Lee. And so he actually studied under Spike Lee with Chloe, who did Nomadland. So he was just like, he had the credentials to like take our ideas, make it a true like film. So we pitched him our idea. We were like, look, we have this idea. We want to do The Departed, but set within the world of COINTELPRO. We wanted to feel like a 1970s crime thriller. Right. We don't want it to feel like a traditional biopic. Right. We wanted to feel like something that's, it can work on two levels. It can work as a biopic, but it should also work as a compelling thriller. Right. And so he was floored by the idea, and then we started like just, you know, brainstorming what the film would look like. Lakeith was like the first person we all agreed would be William O'Neill. Mm-hmm. We got to get Lakeith.
Yeah, that's
and Jesse Plemons was like, we got to have him for Roy Mitchell. So those were like already formulated in that initial meeting. And so we worked on a more detailed outline with, basic story beats, basic story structure. And we were already working on a script for Universal and Judd Apatow. So we brought in another script writer to help us flesh out our ideas.
But he was actually working on, so Will Burson, who's the other screenwriter on the movie, he was working on his own Fred Hampton story, right, independent of what we were doing. And he had a complete script. It was full. It was done. He sent it to us. It's like 130 something pages.
Right.
And so, interestingly enough, Jermaine Fowler, he knew Will Burson and he knew us and Shaka, and he basically made the connection with all of us. And so Will sent us a script. We read it and we were like, oh yeah, this is like, he had some really compelling scenes in there and ideas. And we were like, well, if we use the story that we have with some elements of his script, piece it all together, I think we have something that we could actually start pitching to production companies.
Right.
And so Shaka and Will went off and put it all together. And that's when they sent the script to Ryan Coogler, who was amazed by the script and the pitch, which basically a pitch that we had about, Thriller. And once Ryan got on board, then Charles got on board. Charles King from Macro to fund it. So he funded like half of the film. And so we had a big name producer, we had most of our funding, and then we went out to, other companies for distribution. And Warner Bros. Was the one who put up the rest of the money in distribution. So it's been a crazy journey,
right,
to get it this far.
I mean, I gotta say, it's like, especially that time frame within U.S. history, just the crust of racism. Every time we get those films from that time period, it always does have that feeling. It's like, all right, here's a biopic of just Black suffering, and just take it.
Right.
But in the way the movie is structured, and like you're saying, there's like being like kind of two different kind of genres of film melded into one. It's far more far more palatable, and it just hits the right way. And I think that's the perfect way to do it. I like the way the movie starts off and how it just starts to flow. And I think you guys did an awesome job with that.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. We grew up on these biopics, so you watch them and you're like, okay, it's a lot of suffering. We don't fight back. And we were like, we need to do something that's slightly more, I don't want to say inventive, but at least a little bit more unique, because, the Hampton story is utterly tragic. And for me, I just couldn't figure out a way to just tell his story without baking in the COINTELPRO plot, because that just, again, it makes it slightly more more of a genre film. Which
and I also like, and this is not a criticism of Malcolm X, but it's just a reality of the way the story was structured. Is that like he has the scene where you see the FBI in a hotel room, and they go back and forth and they make the comment about King, and that's it. That's like the extent of not that's it, but I mean the FBI is really sort of like an ancillary sort of shadowy background. But if you really read, and there's this great biography on X.
Yeah, I read that. Have you guys read it's about his, hold on, let me.
It's the most recent one, right?
Yeah, the most recent one. I won the Pulitzer.
I watched it. Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah,
it's an incredible. What's the name of it?
And so in that he'll bring it up, and in that biography, you learn more about the extent to which the FBI was surveilling X, the extent to which they used informants to surveil X.
Malcolm X: Life of Reinvention by Manny Marvel. He just died. He died.
So but that book is fantastic, but it really goes into like the extent to which the FBI used ghetto informants and surveillance to pretty much
because when you watch go ahead.
All like Black political figures at the time, because I watched a documentary for TIFF called MLK.
Such a great
and it's just like I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I grew up in a suburb surrounded by white people. I was like one of 2 other black kids in my class, and they never went into this stuff. It was always Black History Month. We're going to touch on MLK and maybe talk about Prince or Michael Jackson. And so like,
and some Harriet Tubman, will sprinkle her in.
Sprinkle some Tubman in there.
So the reason why I want to do Malcolm X with you guys is because after watching this movie, I'm like, these are stories in different sides of these figures that you don't see outside of what selective things that the teachers want to teach, right?
Right.
Like, humanizing Fred Hampton and like talking about his cause, talking about his, I mean, I think one of the most profound scenes in Judas and the Black Messiah is when Daniel, he's talking to the community leader in the facility, and he's like, we're going out the same way that everyone else has been going. Out. It's just we should be so happy. We should be so happy. Like, I mean, to believe in something in regards to like your rights and like the movement. That's incredibly powerful for me, and for someone that grew up pretty much in a sheltered community, especially Black man. Like these are the kind of stories that we need to like make sure that are being played in the history classes and that people understand.
Well, I totally agree. I totally agree.
I also think is like, so like in our generation, we're kind of like that generation that's like now being, we're once or twice removed from our parents living in that era. Like, I know, like you guys don't know, so I've said this 1,000 times on the podcast, but like, my dad grew up, well, he was born in 1937. So he lived through all of that. And then on top of that, Malcolm X is actually my dad's cousin.
Oh, wow.
So I've heard all of this crazy shit surrounded around Malcolm X. Like he was up the block when he got killed and being rushed into the hospital and shit like that. So it's so like my whole thing of like civil rights movement and everything is like, it's just like I'm listening to somebody who was in the streets there when it was all going on.
Right.
Like when I was sitting in class, as a kid listening to shit, I was like, what are you guys talking about? This has nothing like the actual accounts I've gotten from my dad and my mom. She was younger at the time, but it's just like this. It all seemed like bullshit to me. And then certain history over the time is just slowly been piecing itself together, and it all starts making sense.
Right.
You start putting it with the world around it. You're like, oh shit, that's what they are really doing. Yeah.
Right. That's so right.
Where did you guys grow up? Like, did you learn about the Black Panthers, Fred Hampton? Did you learn about Malcolm X like growing up, or so we like the story, like learning about it more in college?
Right. So we grew up in Newark, New Jersey. Not sure if you're familiar with Newark, New Jersey, but it was one of the first cities in the country to have a Black mayor in 1970. What was his name? He died. Kenneth Gibson. And so, Newark is a very radical place. Right. There were riots in '67.
Bragg Gordon Baker Bone. Yeah,
right. Gordon Baker Bone from Newark. Shout out to Gordon Baker Bone. Yeah. So Newark is an incredibly radical place, and Amiri Baraka is the home of Amiri Baraka, who was the founder of the Black Arts Movement. Right. And he was one of the people who he left his white wife when Malcolm X died. Right. He moved to Harlem and moved back to Newark, all because of the assassination of Malcolm X. Right. And that was sort of the impetus for him to start the Black Arts Movement. Right. So we grew up in a city that was.
His son is now the mayor of Newark.
His son is now the mayor of Newark. So we grew up in a city that had Black leadership. It was very, very Black. It was Black nationalism was the ethos. Right. I didn't see white people until I moved to North Carolina. Right. So we grew up in a very radicalized place with Black leadership. So
and then there's also a contingent of the Nation of Islam. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing is a couple of North brothers they went from a mosque to Harlem to speculation that North brothers were the guys who assassinated Malcolm X. William Bradley actually was the guy who they say pulled the trigger on the shotgun, the first shotgun.
If I remember, he was like nowhere near there, and he had nothing to do with it. Or was it? Well, there was one guy who was definitely there. That's one of the guys that they caught outside. But there were other guys from different mosques around that they just started picking up and saying, "Oh, this guy was involved. This guy was involved."
Did you see the Netflix documentary?
Yes.
Right. So, all those guys, a lot of those guys did come from Newark into Harlem. Again, there's no direct evidence yet,
but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the guys came from Newark. I mean, Newark is a very radicalized place, and I think at the time they saw Malcolm X as not radical enough, right? Because he was starting to break away from he broke away from the nation.
And that's actually an interesting part of Malcolm X's history that like gets forgotten, is that he was like changing his views throughout his own self-discovery after like, stepping back from Elijah Muhammad. Well, Elijah was kind of stepping away from him. But and I think that's why I really appreciate this film. First of all, this is like an epic Black film.
Right.
Like, one of the best films of all time. Best performance. I told Justin when we were reviewing this, I'm like, best performance of all time. I personally think Denzel is just, first of all, it's the longest performance for any like actor that's been nominated for Best Actor.
Right.
Snubbed by Al Pacino for fucking Sin of a Woman.
One of the great travesties in Oscars.
Yep.
They should have just given Al Pacino the Academy Award for The Godfather Part 2, and then they wouldn't have had to, make up for it.
It's all this consolidation stuff, because they said the same thing Denzel got for Training Day because he was due. It's like
he didn't get it for Malcolm X. It's like, just get it right. Get it for Malcolm X. He knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was a flawless performance. Just a mastery of the craft between him and Denzel. And Spike Lee. It was just like two people at the peak of their skills, and they were both still very hungry. And it's just like, it was so. One of the greatest performances ever. And the cinema, everything about the film is flawless. It's one of those films, like when you watch it, you don't know what you're about to get, but when you're in the story, you're just like, holy, I don't want to pull away. I want to know how this.
It was 3.5 hours. I started watching it last night again for the first time in like about a year or so, and it was like an hour and a half, and I'm like, man, I'm really tired. I gotta go to bed. I got work tomorrow. But then like as soon as I had some free time, I put it back on. And I'm like, this is such a, especially when you learn about the story with Spike Lee,
right,
having to take so much, like he had to get the funding for it. He had to like give up.
Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan.
The list is a little complicated because Michael Jordan, Oprah, Bill Cosby, I think Magic Johnson. And there's one other like, on that list.
Well, so apparently the movie rights belong to a guy who in Canada or something like that.
What's the guy? So it was a white dude. He was working on the film with. What's the poet? James Baldwin. James Baldwin. So James Baldwin was the first guy to try to take a shot at making the Malcolm X biopic. Right. He wrote it in Columbia, actually. Right, Columbia Pictures. Columbia Pictures commissioned him to write the script, and he wrote like this 300-page script. Jesus. And they hated it. Columbia hated it. What's the guy's name? The white guy. He's a producer. What's his fucking name? He gets credited in the film.
Are we talking about Arnold Pearl or Marvin Worth? Marvin
Worth. Yes, that's the guy. So he was working. He did Lenny, right? Yeah, he did Lenny. Right. So he was working with Baldwin in the '60s to try to get this film made, and Baldwin like almost lost his fucking soul making it. I mean, he was really into it, and afterward, when he couldn't get it made, like he was thinking about like suicide. It got like real dark. Right. And so after Baldwin wasn't able to get it through, like it just got tabled. People were just like, we can't. I guess there was a documentary about Malcolm X in the '70s, but it got tabled in terms of making it a real film. And then and then Spike Lee picked it back up and he actually used some of Baldwin's script, and then rewrote it to make it a more shootable film. But that's history right there, to be connected to Baldwin. I think it again makes the film even more special. It makes it more authentic. Absolutely, like because Baldwin loved X, like he absolutely adored him. And so for Spike Lee to make that connection and work off of that script to make a more perfect film, it's just genius. It's a genius.
Yeah, and it's just phenomenal performances. I mean, Angela Bassett, even Spike Lee was
Spike is he's so I forgot how funny he was in the movie. Yeah, it's just like comedic timing, and I shouldn't be laughing in this film, but he was just like he just knocked it out of the park with his comedy. Underrated.
Justin and I were talking before we got on mic. He was kind of talking about the length, and like he was like they could have cut some of that beginning part. And
Well, I mean, because it's almost like two different movies. It's pre-X, and then we have Islam X,
right?
And well, actually, let's say Malcolm Little and then Malcolm,
right? You know how I see it? It's almost like it's like Godfather Part 2, where you have that you got the Pacino and the De Niro part, and you're seeing like those two films. Because I was like, this is a gangster film more than anything else when I really watch it. And I was like, oh, it feels like it is two totally separate. Well, what's crazy about the film is that, like, as Malcolm is, transforming and becoming a different person, Spike plays within genres. Like, so he's changing genres as Malcolm is changing his identity. Right. It's so bizarre. Like, it's like you start off with this gangster film, but you even have like a 1950s sort of musical that's involved in it with the dance sequence.
Right. I wrote down, actually, I'm really bummed that Spike Lee never got to direct a full musical.
Oh, right. I know.
Even the third remake, In the Heights, I know he was in talks for a lot of things. He just never got
to that scene blows my mind. Like, the choreography, the colors, I remember watching it when I was younger and not appreciating it. And then I watched it very recently. I was like, this is like Coen Brothers. And how he's like shaping his scene, and it was just great. Right. I mean, again, to put that in a biopic. I mean, he made so many bold choices. I mean, I just, when I'm rewatching it, I'm like, this is such an inventive biopic. This is not traditional. This is right. I mean, it's cradle to grave, but like you said, it's an epic, and it explores so many different genres that you're like, oh, this guy's a freaking master of the craft. Right. Like this was what, his second movie, third.
I think it was his third, because Do the Right Thing was 88 or
89.
Yeah.
School Days was first, and then
this was 92.
Yeah. So I mean, it's still an early film for him. For him to be able to like play within so many genres at such a young age, I just thought it's phenomenal.
And he had a lot riding on this. He had like a massive cast. I mean, you got Ozzie Davis, you got Wendell Pierce, you got Teresa Delroy Lindo. I mean,
Angela Bassett.
I got to Spike. He has like an ensemble that he usually goes to, and he lets people eat. Like performances like Delroy Lindo is fantastic. And then I just was like, man, I gotta watch The Five Bloods again, because just Spike and Delroy, they have like a different, they bring a different kind of energy to films.
Well, Giancarlo Esposito, it's funny because I didn't even realize that was him in that scene until I was watching it. I was like, oh shit, that is Giancarlo Esposito.
Right. I mean, Spike has obviously I forgot Wendell Pierce was in it. Yeah, I was like, oh shit. I forgot Wendell Pierce. It blew my mind. I forgot Wendell Pierce. I mean, just so many talented character actors. Right. And he just has a way with, again, a master of his craft at such a young age. Right. And he's able to deal with these huge ensembles within a period piece that's also playing in different genres, but also with this magnetic performance from Denzel. It's like and Angela Bassett. Like he's again a master of his craft. I thought the guy who played Elijah Muhammad. Oh yeah, did he not get? He didn't get nominated. He was giving me again Godfather 2 vibes from the guy who, what's the guy's name? Lee Strasberg. Oh, Lee Strasberg. Yeah. So the guy who played who's the guy? Yeah, I know you're talking about Mary Lansky. No, is it Lansky? Not Lansky, but what the fuck is his name? No.
Talking about the gangster, right?
The old gangster.
I'm trying to like think about back to Boardwalk Empire, and I'm blanking.
What's his name? He's the old gangster that Pacino he goes to Cuba to see him.
The one who like the Jewish dude, right?
Yeah, Jewish dude. Hyman Roth. Yeah. But I was getting Hyman Roth vibes. Like the guy who played the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was actually in The Dutchman, Mary Baraka. So it was like, he's a great actor, just sort of under the radar, but he did a fantastic job. Right. Too.
Yeah, man. I mean, the performances, I mean, just everything about this movie, you're just like, this is going into like every registry. This should be part of cinema history. And, it's just, you can tell that Spike Lee gave it his all. Like he had, he put his blood, sweat, and tears into it. And
he put his soul into it.
Yeah.
Right.
For
Yeah.
100% fully invested. I mean, those suits at the beginning.
Those suits, yeah, he loves the suits.
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
boy. Man, I was looking at those suits. I was just like, I don't know what was going on in the 50s, but
Yeah.
if you see me walking around in something like that,
I mean, I
They
think
were fly as shit, man. That was like that's the flyest you look back then, man.
with a smile on his face and the walk.
I will say, when he was straightening his hair, that brought back memories. Like I said, I grew up in a weird place. My mom didn't really teach me like that black folks shouldn't do that to their hair.
Right.
I do like the whole S curl thing.
Oh, word.
You got yourself a just for me package.
Yeah, I still remember that shiny niggle in the box.
Yeah. Was it painful?
Oh yeah, I mean, because like there's like different steps. Oh,
Sorry about that. That was my fault. I kicked my camera down.
no, because there's like different steps to it. So you got to put like a conditioner, then you put it in, you let it sit for like 20 minutes, and then it does start burning. And so you got to wash it. It was just a mess.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're better.
That's probably why I'm like, I'm bald now because everything comes full circle at some point.
You can put that lie in your hair, brother.
I think it's and the white woman and the pork. I had a lot of that. I was sitting so much growing up.
All you had to do was go to jail and you'd have been good, man. You're a righteous brother.
I do think, and reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and then seeing Denzel's performance, it's so crazy because he knew he was going to die.
Right.
Like he knew he was going to die a pretty violent death. I think in that last scene, it's like he's at peace with it. Like he's kind of like, it's a time to be a martyr. And
right.
Like,
well, you know what? And
with your family out there, it's just that's a lot.
I've always kind of had some problems with Spike Lee, just in a sense is like I feel like in the last number of years he hasn't kind of evolved too much. So sometimes I look back and I see like this movie, like this was a perfect use of that dolly shot.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
Because like it brought something so just like so real to that moment where he's going to his death. He knows that this is probably it, and it's just like stone face and just like the world traveling behind him. I'm like, that's the best.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect use of it.
Right. And perfect use of a change is gonna come. Right. Yeah, it's just that scene always sort of just like gives me chills. Right. Even when I watched it recently, I was like, yeah, this is a chilling scene because he's well aware. And you read Life and Reinvention, Malcolm X was well aware of his death. He was convinced that he was going to die in early. He was going to die in early death, and it's like that scene is just like it's such a visual scene, and you're not exactly sure what you're watching. It's sort of like it's like a magnet. It's sort of like going towards his death, that he's lost all control of what's going to happen. Right. It's like he has accepted his fate. Right. And a lot of those guys in the 60s, they Dr. King, Hampton, X, they were convinced that they were going to die early. Right. And unfortunately, that's what happened.
Well, I think that's why, like, I mean, everyone listening, you definitely need to check out Judas and the Black Messiah. I think that's one of the and my wife says this all the time. She's like, "It be your own kind," and it's heartbreaking because in this movie, obviously, it's Black people that took Malcolm down, even though they're manipulated by the government and the controls. But same thing in Judas and the Black Messiah against
and with Dr. King. Dr. King. I mean, I know they say it was a white man who pulled the trigger, but there were informants all throughout the SNCC. So it's like.
Well, actually, on that thing with Dr. King, have you guys been to Memphis? Has anybody been to Memphis?
No, I haven't been. I want to go desperately.
So I was in Memphis, and there's a barbecue spot that, like, me and my coworkers, we just hit this barbecue spot, and we're like, we'll just walk back to the hotel. Just so happens around the block, like when I'm talking about around the block, meaning like you take 20 steps this way and you look to the right, it's the hotel where Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Wow.
Into like kind of like you know, a museum for it. But they preserved the actual area, so like there's the old school cars there and everything, the building's still there. And like when you walk up, you know, like they show like this is the spot where he was murdered, and like you're reading the plaque and is like, oh yeah, and the shot came from behind you and everything. It's like, so everything is still there, and it's like this eerie thing. It's like you can almost feel it. It's like a thick air just around that place. And like if you turn around, you can see where like the guy, he was like right there, and it wasn't too far away. So like sitting there just like waiting. So it's like, obviously he had to know when he was coming up, and yeah, it's I just say, everybody, if you have an opportunity to go down to Memphis and check out, I forgot what the name of the hotel is. Lorraine Hotel. It's like it's something I think that everybody should see, especially if you're a person of color, because you know that's a part of history we shouldn't forget.
Memphis is a fascinating. Like we read this book. What was the name of it? The Spy and Canaan. Spy and Canaan. So it's about Ernest Withers, he was basically the photographer of the civil rights. He took that famous picture, "I Am a Man," you know the "I Am a Man" picture about the sanitation workers in Memphis, and he took the Dr. King "I Have a Dream" picture. Just like a lot of these iconic shots that we see.
Like all of the iconic shots of the civil rights, this guy took it. He's from Memphis.
From Memphis. He was a police officer. He turns out he was an informant.
Right.
So you have this photographer who's taking all these iconic shots, but he's also giving information to the FBI, you know, working closely with the FBI.
Yeah.
And he was apparently at the motel the day before or the night before King got assassinated. So it's like, yeah, again, you never know, you just never know who's that person who's feeding information to the government. And it happened with Malcolm X, it happened with Dr. King, it happened with him. And, you know, FBI had a MO.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of people don't understand that history about the FBI and how it infiltrated these communities and turned them against each other.
Right.
We don't talk enough about that. Like I remember watching J. Edgar, the Clint Eastwood movie with Leo, right? Because I'll see anything Leo's in, and I'm just like, what the fuck is it? Like, he was so much. They were trying to humanize him and stuff. Like, no. Like that was terrible. Like, you know,
he's a monster.
Yeah, it was just like tapping everyone's phones. Paying for informants to try to take people out, and trying to blackmail people, like, you know, blackmail MLK with the sex tapes and stuff.
Right.
Like it's just,
and then you know it goes further though, because there was a recent release of FBI documents in relation to Fred Hampton's murder, and there's evidence now that Hoover and his second in command Sullivan actually participated in the raid on Fred Hampton. So they were well aware of what was happening.
Oh, wow.
They say they basically planned the raid to assassinate Hampton. So, you know, these guys weren't just surveilling, they weren't just spying on, they were actively executing African Americans who fought for liberation and freedom. I mean, it was an all-out war on African Americans.
Well, and to that point, you know, now we live in a world where the Black Panthers are known as a radical group that will tear down America.
Saving the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, Malcolm X, known as a radical leader to want to tear down America. Like if you really just listen to him, it's just like, hey guys, you know, somebody's you know beating you up, you should be able to fight back.
Right.
You know, like that. I don't think that's. Landed on us. Thank you, Brandon. I mean, like, I don't think there's nothing radical about saying like, hey, you defend yourself.
Right. We have it's in the Constitution. We have a constitutional right to bear arms, and a lot of, like, especially the Black Panthers, you know, they were exercising their constitutional right, but then you realize, oh, okay, the Constitution only applies to white men. It doesn't apply to African Americans. We don't have in the mind of the FBI, we don't have the same rights. if we pick up a gun, it's criminal behavior. But if white dudes storm the Capitol, they're fighting for liberty and freedom. And it's like, it's two different justice systems.
Yeah.
And in fact, we don't even have a justice system. We're just criminalized.
Yeah.
We're criminals. We're seen as criminals. We're treated as criminals.
Right.
And Hampton was treated as a criminal. Dr. King was treated as a criminal.
Right.
And Malcolm X.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier, like going to law school and then dropping out. I mean, what was the drive behind wanting to be lawyers? And, was it because you wanted to, help the community? Like, what was just kind of like the idea of when you initially started in law school?
I mean, you coming out of college, or you're in your junior year of college and you're like, what the hell am I going to do? What's next? Like, because college is sort of like this fairy tale where, you're in class and you're studying all these concepts and you're like, oh,
so much.
This is so dope.
Such a bubble.
But it's like, it's a bubble. And you're like, when reality fucking sets in, you're like, I gotta prepare myself for the real world. So we're like, I guess law school is a respectable profession. It makes you money and you can.
Yeah, it was a purely pragmatic choice. I mean, I wasn't like one of those guys who was just like, I'm going to be Thurgood Marshall. It was more like, I feel like seems like the next step. It seems like the thing to do. We studied philosophy, so we recognize that getting a PhD in philosophy, that's a very privileged thing to get, and it's not one of those things that's going to get you out of the hood. So it's like I'm going to study law. I can make money. I can get a good degree. It's a flexible degree. I can do a lot. It's like one of those. I made the middle class choice from a perspective of a poor Black dude.
Right.
And once I got to law school, I realized like this shit is not for everybody. I mean, like if you don't have a love of money or a love of the legal profession, like it's going to kill your soul.
Especially like as a Black dude, and you're sitting there and you're hearing all these things about the law, and then in your mind you're like, man, this seems like, it doesn't seem like it applies to my people. It doesn't seem like this, whatever we're studying right now, I don't think that these same rules apply to Black dudes or Black women or people of color. It felt like I was studying something that was used to destroy Black people, and it was always just like internal, like, it's just crummy. And then you see people like Ted Cruz and
Josh Hawley,
and all these lawyer types,
and
they populate the elite legal. Not everyone who's in the elite sphere of law are terrible, but I feel like there's a sort of an ethos where the legal institution is something that should be valued, and it's something that we look at as something that should have prestige, and it's not something that we look at negatively that has been used to oppress a group of people over 3 centuries. That's the only way I see it. I can't see the legal institution any other way. So it was just uncomfortable for me on so many levels.
Got it. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, without you dropping out, we wouldn't have gotten, your cartoon, Lucas Brothers Movement Company. We wouldn't have gotten this. So, you made the decision at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, definitely. I certainly feel like, without, I mean, I'm great. Oddly enough, I'm very thankful for my legal education, but I'm also very thankful that I'm not a lawyer. Right. It's just not. I love being an artist. I just love making things like Judas and the Black Messiah and being able to reach a wider audience and affect people in a way that you can't do as a lawyer.
Right.
Justin, you want to break down our rating system?
All right. So we rate movies, bags of popcorn, small, medium, large, and the XL for the exceptional. Now, if it doesn't deserve any popcorn, then we could take that and throw it into the pile of dog shit and pile piles and piles of dog shit on top.
Gotcha.
Now, I really feel like we're not going to need the dog shit pile for this film.
No.
Hey, shit, you never know. So we sat down and we watched Malcolm X, 1992 film starring Denzel Washington, Angela Bassett, Albert Hall, Al Freeman, Delroy Lindo, Spike Lee, Teresa Randall, Kate Vernon. I could just go down the list and just read every damn name out on here, but let's not do that. We'd be here all damn day. But what do you guys say?
I think it's extra.
I think I can give the highest rating, XL.
Yeah.
XL for sure. I think when I first watched it, it would have been, large.
Right.
But given time and given the influence and given just the technical mastery of the film, I can't give it anything less than a perfect score.
Right.
My extra large popcorn for sure.
Right. I think it's one of his best films, if not his best.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the best films made in that time, and it might be one of the best films of all time, given more time. I think it's an excellent film.
And you just see the influence of it. I mean, it directly influenced Judas and the Black Messiah.
Right.
It influenced Selma. You just see the influence of so many different kinds of films and so many artists. I mean, it's Spike was at the top of his game there, and I would rank it as top 2 in his filmography.
Absolutely. I also agree. I'm going to give it an XL. I mean, this movie's had such a huge impact on film history. And I mean, Denzel, it's just, like I said, the best performance I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And
so flawless.
It's crazy because, obviously the vast, amount of work that's out there, but it's still like, I was mesmerized the whole time watching it. And just, I do agree. It's like definitely top 3 of Spike's filmography down. And for me, it's such an impactful movie because there's still some relevancy now.
Oh yeah.
And it still holds up. Yes, it is a little bit long compared to like what we usually see.
Right.
But not one frame is wasted. I think that
not one frame.
Spike Lee's movies where it's a bit excessive, whereas this one, I'm like, he probably cut down a lot.
Exactly. Right. That movie could have been 10 hours. It could have been 10 hours. Malcolm X's life was so complex and nuanced. Like 3 hours is probably on the short end of a Malcolm X. Right.
I mean, the only thing is like a part of me, I kind of wish that we got to see a little bit more Malcolm X. I don't know. Like, if I could do anything, is take a little bit away from the Malcolm Little part. Just give me more X.
But you needed that though. No, I think that's why the stuff with the father, the flashbacks with the the parallel between his house being firebombed and the dad and stuff. And I'm like, that almost made me cry, man. Like that was you don't get that without that backstory. Though.
No, 100%. But it's like anytime I see I watch this movie, I'm always craving for more information. Max was once he entered a nation of Islam and he started to really branch out and become his own man and things like that. Like, part of me wanted to see more of that. The pilgrimage to Mecca and things like that. And I know we got a lot of that in his writings and
they actually filmed in Mecca too.
Yeah, and through his wife and such. But it was just one of those things. Is just like anytime I watch this movie, it's just like I just want more. I want more. I want.
That's why I appreciated One Night in Miami because we were able to see Malcolm in sort of almost his playful side. But you don't really get that much of in Malcolm X. You get to see a side of him where he's like, oh, he appreciated photography. He was a jokester. He told jokes. He was comedic. He I don't know. I see your point. It's like you get the gangster side, but you want to also see just more of that not playful, but that human Malcolm X who was, not the civil rights leader and not the firebrand, spokesman for the Nation of Islam, but also just like the softer side of him.
And also you got to see in One Night in Miami. I mean, Kingsley did a phenomenal job with the it was also kind of like a scared Malcolm in a way. I'm kind of lost my place. I think this is what I want to do. And he was trying to get Muhammad Ali to officially convert, and it's just like it's a different vibe from what Denzel brought here. Denzel is just all intensity. It's we're intensity, whereas Kingsley did it like you said, a little bit more playful, a little bit more.
He was worn down, and that's what it was like. That after reading, Man in Marble's book, Malcolm X was worn down. He was getting it from all sides. Nation of Islam. They bombed his house.
All the phone calls.
The phone calls, the FBI, everyone was coming.
It was psychological warfare.
Yeah, he was worn down, and I think Kingsley did a phenomenal job in capturing how worn down Malcolm X was.
and almost like he was prepared to die because of how there was just so much happening to him.
Right.
And you're right. Denzel plays it. He's so ferocious that you don't get that softer, more worn down version of Malcolm X, which I think Regina King does an exceptional job in getting that out of Kingsley.
Yeah. Denzel had like a deep simmer of like just like the anger from the first half, which is why I think it works so well.
Yeah.
When those women are telling him about Elijah having all these kids and stuff and saying, he loves you, but he also says that your voice is too strong and that one day you're going to leave and you're going to be a problem. And Denzel's face when he's hearing this is just like, man, like how do you express so much with just the face? Like that's
right.
Yeah, it's one of the best performances ever.
That's like your mom telling you. It's like hearing that your mom loves you, but also at the same time hates your fucking guts.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's like, damn, mama.
You know Cheryl too. What's your rating, man?
Yeah, so I'm giving this an XL. Because to tell you the truth, like this is the second movie that I saw in the movie theaters.
Oh wow!
Second, the first movie I saw was Ninja Turtles, the first Ninja Turtles film.
Mine was Look Who's Talking, which is disturbing.
Total Recall.
So the first Ninja Turtles, and then my mom took me to see this film.
That's a different range right there. Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2 years later, all stuff.
It's like you're here, so Turtles, motherfucker. Now you guys.
So like what? I was 8 when I saw this film in the theater, and like that's when like my mom and my dad started to tell me about the fact that like this is actually your dad's cousin and things like that. And so like that's I kind of got a little bit more infatuated with Malcolm X,
right?
Because I'm just like, oh shit, he's like family,
right.
But it's like, and I remember sitting there in a movie theater at 8 years old and being glued to a screen, and like a lot of this stuff I didn't understand. I didn't 100% get it, but I knew that it was important. And at that time, I didn't even know the fact. I didn't have that context of who Malcolm X was to my family. It was just this guy on the screen. So like it was. Like it's just one of those films that it just in my things like one of the best films I've ever seen, one of the best films that like it means something to me, and as far as Spike Lee, for me this is his greatest work he's ever done. That's all I gotta say about that.
Do you think it's better than Do the Right Thing?
Awesome.
I really Do the Right Thing is so fucking perfect.
Do the Right Thing is good. We reviewed that I think like a year ago or so. And I think we gave it an XL as well.
Right.
But I mean, I think the thing that brings this over the top is just Denzel. Like, Do the Right Thing had Spike in the main role.
Fair.
Whereas this has Denzel just he's the greatest of all time.
Right.
I'll drop another nugget on you. Fucking Do the Right Thing. My dad's other cousin is fucking Bill Nunn.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, if you watch He Got Game, you're seeing my dad on screen.
That's crazy.
That's exactly how my dad, like with those rose-colored glasses and shit.
Yeah.
He's sitting there talking. I'm just like, I watched that movie and I can see my father. Like it's so crazy the way he's talking. My dad kind of had that kind of fucking like simmering fucking anger under everything he said. But like, yes, it's so like, Spike has some shit that's like is like near and dear to my heart. And like this, Do the Right Thing, and like actually, He Got Game is another one for me.
He Got Game is really good too.
Really, I love He Got Game. I like it.
Yeah,
25th Hour. I think it's one of his best.
25th Hour is really good. It actually,
Inside Man. They didn't write.
Man. Yeah, I mean his filmography is dope. It's just when he hits, it's like fucking phenomenal. But when he misses, it hurts.
Yeah,
it just hurts a lot. And you're just like, did you need to do She Got Me? She hate me. She hate me. I mean, Kerry, Washington is hot, but damn, like this is a weird movie, man.
But he revolutionized cinema and black cinema.
Absolutely.
Like he just opened the door for so many of us. I mean, it's like without Spike, you don't get anyone. Right? He took black. I hate to pigeonhole and say black cinema, but he took black cinema and independent cinema, and he merged the two, and he's just a tour de force.
Yeah. Bro, when Spike finally won an Oscar for Black Klansman, I feel like I won. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, I've been following this dude since I was young. Like, it's like him and Eddie Murphy. Like, those are the careers I've been following since I was like, I can remember. And I was just so happy for him.
Right. So happy. I love the guy. I think he's just, like you say, he keeps a lot of Black folks working. Mm-hmm. He's been keeping a lot of Black folks working, you know, and he's just a revolutionary dude, and he changed cinema for a lot of us. And I'm glad that it's a bit of a Spike Lee renaissance now with Black Klansman and the Five Bloods. And it's like he's now definitely getting as much recognition as he's ever received from, and well deserved. And like he's just he's gonna go like. He's our Tarantino. He's going to go down in history as one of the greatest directors of all time. Right. So it's like.
Did you guys know that Spike Lee studied under Scorsese?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I just read that like in doing some research about this movie. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. NYU, right?
Yep.
Yeah. He's teaching a generation of filmmakers now. Like Shaka studied under him. Right. And you know, it's like Shaka alone. It's like you see the influences from Spike. And, we're just very thankful for Spike Lee, because without him, it's like you don't get this renaissance that we're seeing in Black cinema. Right.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell people they can follow you, everything about Judas and the Black Messiah, how they can find that when it comes out.
Sure. So we have Twitter and Instagram. It's just Lucas Bros. Yeah. Lucas Bros, Instagram, Twitter. And then there's a website for Judas and the Black Messiah, www.judasandtheblackmessiah. So just type in Judas and a bunch of shit should come up. And it's coming out February 12th in theaters and on HBO Max. But we're having a premiere at Sundance on February 1st.
Yep, next Monday. We're actually going to watch. I mean, I've already seen it, but we're going to watch it again.
Oh, amazing.
We're covering Sundance, so yeah.
Oh, great. So it's like, you know, the trailer's been everywhere, and I think people are getting really excited about it. And it just got, you know, top 10 at NBR and AFI. So
congratulations, man.
Oh, thank you. So it's getting recognition, and I think it's an important film. And the Black Film Critics Circle. Oh, Black Film Critics Circle also put it in its top 10. So hopefully people appreciate it, and we can only dream of having the same impact that Malcolm X had on cinema with Judas and the Black Messiah.
Absolutely. Justin, how can people follow you, man?
Guys, you can follow me at JBrown Did It on Twitter and Instagram. Brandon?
You can follow me at American Counts, AmericanCounts.com. You can follow the show at Media and Pete Podcast on all social media platforms. All things Media and Popcorn can be found at MediaandPopcorn.com. And sign up for that Patreon, right, Justin?
Patreon.com/Media and Popcorn. We got tons and tons of content on there. We got the rant. We got what am I watching? We got the Zoom parties. We got all the things you need in Media and Popcorn. And of course, stop by MediaandPopcorn.com for all things Media and Popcorn. And grab some swag at tpublic.com/medium popcorn. So many medium popcorn said right there. But leave us a voicemail. Tell us how you feel, how you love us, how you hate us. 347-508-0978.
Yep. And thanks again, Keith and Kenny. Really appreciate it. Phenomenal job on Judas and the Messiah. And really looking forward to what you guys do next.
Yeah, brother.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Telling that story, guys.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Peace, fellas.
Take care, guys.
Peace.